and we are up and running. It is a somewhat melancholy day in some ways here in the Midwest. The aftermath of the snow, and now we've got the muck and the cleanup phase. And, you know, the snow when it's pristine is always a beautiful thing. But then after the soot and grime of the city settle on it, it starts to take on a whole different nature. And I think that's a really good analogy of that whole idea of separation. You know, it looks sparkly and clean and exciting at first, but then after you settle into it, it's like, ooh, I don't think I like this. So how are things up north there, Barret?
You know, right here they're still sparkly and white. So, but I just did have the feeling to suggest that wherever you are, if you're near some snow, to make sure you don't eat the yellow snow. So that's my recommendation for everyone out there.
Yes, and around here we've got, you know, 110-pound German Shepherds, so we have plenty of yellow snow, and also snow with his deposits that he makes for the spring thaw, which is a delightful part of March and April.
Maybe I should say don't eat the brown snow either.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And every time he gets into the garbage, which he is always striving to do, then we end up dealing with him having 2 or 3 days of loose bowel syndrome. And thank God more snow comes along, covers it up. So
I think that's actually another good analogy for life in this world, is that about the best we can hope for in this world is that the shit that we're dealing with is going to be covered up by something nice for a while.
yes, the happy dream kicks in, and then all of a sudden you're off and running on a new adventure, and in that new theme, unfortunately, you discover that the old theme is just repeating itself with a different set of dressing.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's fitting we're talking about dogs, because as we were talking about the section we're going to be discussing today is in chapter 28, section 7, which is the Ark of Safety. And you know, thinking about the Ark as we were starting up our show today, I thought, well, rather than having our normal dog and pony show, well, with the Ark, it would be a 2-dog and 2-pony show.
Yes, you've got to get those pairs in. But, you know, one of the things I think is funny is a lot of times you see illustrations of the Ark, and they'll have 2 lions side by side walking up the ramp. And the person who created the illustration was not having a lucid moment, because they're 2 male lions with their manes. You know, and it's like, I don't think that's going to work, but at least not for propagation. They may be, you know, winning awards for the gay couple of the month. But
well, I think they represent gay pride very well. So,
yes, that's the beauty of the Leo phenomenon there. Leo the lion and the pride. So. But yeah, you know, it really is a thing of recognizing that the Ark that A Course in Miracles talks about is such an entirely different vision, an entirely different concept, because in the Ark that is divine, in the Ark that is God, everyone is included. Nobody is left behind as the rains start to come in. There is no sacrifice. And that is the imagery that Jesus offers us as to how we have to address the process of our journey through this world is that we can't leave anybody out. We can't feel like, oh, this person doesn't deserve my love or attention or respect or whatever. And and how that cripples us in our own journey into that next state of awareness of actually boarding the ark and becoming a part of salvation's experience.
And that really fits with, the ego's motto is one or another, one versus another. It's always about antagonism and conflict. And the Holy Spirit's motto is together or not at all. And that's how we progress. That's how we wake up. That's exactly the point you're making, and it's really what a big understanding of this entire section. I really like the way that this section starts off. It says, God asks for nothing, and his Son, like him, need ask for nothing. For there is no lack in him. An empty space, a little gap would be a lack, and it is only there that he could want for something he has not. So we're starting off with the vision of wholeness, that we are whole and complete, which is our truth. And then he's basically saying, but we thought that there was a lack. We thought that there was a little gap. But it's only imaginary. He says, a space where God is not, a gap between the Father and the Son, is not the will of either, who have promised to be one. So again, we come back to this idea that we are already whole. We are already healed. We don't really have a problem to solve, but we sure think we do, right? As I think there's a line something like, I've got 99 problems and this thing ain't one. Well, we seem to have 99 problems, but the one problem is just the belief in separation that underlies all of those multiple problems we have. And that's why, again, Jesus says sometimes that this course is simple, although he almost never says it's easy. He says it's simple because all of our problems have the same root. They all have the root of the belief that we're separate from God. And they're all corrected the same way by letting go, ultimately, of that belief in separation. Then what happens is we find an inner peace that transcends whatever the circumstances that we're finding ourselves in. And it just transforms our whole experience. So that's what we're leading towards as we practice, joining together on this arc back to God.
Absolutely. And the thing that comes through so perfectly is the idea that there is no by degrees. In other words, you cannot have a foot in both realms. You cannot maintain a consistency and have any progress or understanding or illumination come through if you're still holding on to the idea of separation. On that second paragraph, it says, the beautiful relationship you have with all your brothers is a part of you because it is a part of God himself. And that is so mind-boggling, is the intimacy that we have with God. A lot of people don't comprehend how intimate our relationship with God is. But since God is life itself, we could not exist apart from God. And that old idea that God is closer than your own breath is so profound, and yet it's so overlooked in most disciplines and most studies of spirituality. And I think that's why the Course really offers us such a expanded understanding, is because it reinforces that idea over and over and over again that you cannot escape from God. That's how immediate God is in your existence. It says, are you not sick if you deny yourself your wholeness and your health, the source of health, the call to healing, and the call to heal? Your Savior waits for healing, and the world waits with him. See how beautifully he flips that. Your Savior is not God in the sense of, oh, I can go to God and be saved by myself. And we're given that understanding that our Savior is everybody that we have rejected, that we have overlooked, that we have pushed away. Because unless we take them with us into that state of conscious union with God, then we're not going to have conscious union with God. So there are no gray zones in discovering the truth and starting to apply the truth and living the truth. And that in itself is so radical and so different from the way that Christianity and most other religious paths present the ideas of God to us. So, you know, what is unseparated must be joined, and what is joined cannot be separate. So if you're still holding a grudge, if you're still pushing somebody out the back door and refusing to allow your heart to open up to encompass them, then you're really limiting yourself to a point where your pursuit of spirituality is meaningless. It's absolutely pointless.
Yeah, and it's why the purely non-dualistic path of A Course in Miracles is, you know, it basically doesn't brag a whole lot, but it does promise that practicing it will save you time. And for me, what that means is that A Course in Miracles is a relatively fast path back to our awareness in God. And I think it's that way because it cuts to the quick, cuts to the chase. You know, every problem, every issue always comes back to the one source of every issue we've ever had. The one source of all suffering we've ever experienced is that belief that we've pulled ourselves away from the oneness. And it's so simple, it's so clear, and it means that there are only two thought systems we're always choosing from. We're choosing from a thought system of love and kindness, or we're choosing and living from a thought system of fear, attack, separation, victimization. As that paragraph that you're reading says, it says, for healing will be one or not at all. It's oneness being where the healing is. What could correct for separation but its opposite? There is no middle ground in any aspect of salvation. You accept it wholly or accept it not. All right, this is the point that we're making so clearly here, is that there's only two things to pick from. You're always picking one or the other. Either you're holding the ego's hand or you're holding Holy Spirit's hand. As soon as you drop ego's hand, you're automatically holding on to ego's hand. Another way I've heard it described is it's like we're in a car and the gear shift only has a forward or a reverse. There's no other options. You're either in forward or you're in reverse. We're either moving towards our awakening to that oneness of love, or we're retreating from it. We're hiding back in the shadows. And as we do this work, we just start to get more and more clear around what it is that we want. What do we want? Do we want the peace of God, or do we want suffering? Do we want pain? And again, when we put it that way, like, no one would consciously say, well, I want the suffering. But if we look at our lives, we see that's the choice we're making again and again and again. And we want to catch ourselves, to notice that we're doing that. We don't want to fight that. We don't want to fight that choice. We don't want to judge ourselves for having made that choice. We don't want to say we're an awful bad person or we're a bad Course in Miracles student. We just want to notice it. We want to notice how attached to the ego thought system we are, because that's the way that we start to undo that attachment. We see the insanity of our life, the insanity of the decisions we've been making, the insanity of believing that someone else can make us happy or sad. It's insane. It's insane. Happiness or sadness, whatever state of emotion, whatever state of being you have, always, always, always comes from within. And as we let go of this need to have someone else be the cause of our state of being, we step back into our true state of power, which simply is that state of love. It simply is that state of joy. But this is the practice. over and over and over again. We just watch how we keep slipping back, and we keep grabbing the ego's hand over and over. And we just say, oh, okay, I see that I grabbed the ego's hand. We don't judge ourselves. We don't blame ourselves. We just make a different choice. And that becomes our practice through everything. We're coming up on the holidays here. We already had Thanksgiving. Now Christmas is coming up in a few weeks. This is a great time to look at how we judge other people or how we judge ourselves. Even though there is a sort of cover, and the outward image most people project at this time of year is one of happiness and everything's good. Under the surface of that, there is a whole lot of pain and suffering. And just look at all of what's happening with all that, and do your best to just be gentle with it. We don't need to fix it all or make it all right. But the more that we witness it, the more that we hold it with a state of gentleness and kindness, the more that we start to come into that peace that's exactly what we're looking for.
There we go. Yeah, the peace that passeth understanding. And when you enter that realm, even if it's, in a meditation and you feel it for 30 seconds or whatever, I know with my own work I've entered into that zone and have felt that overwhelming state of being at peace, and extended it and stayed in that state for 10 or 15 minutes. And it is rejuvenating. It's an astonishing experience. And the more you seek that, the more it becomes accessible. And that's really how we start to unravel the mystery of what we created. Because, basically this world is our creation, and it's a lunatic asylum. And if you're trying to figure it out by observing the world, you're just going to drive yourself mad. But by taking these doses of peace and going inward and reclaiming your inner truth, then all of a sudden you can come back out and look at the world and realize, oh, this is an insane asylum. This is not real. This could not possibly be real. And that's why it's always in flux. That's why it's always changing. It's never consistent. So a little bit further here, it says a split allegiance is but faithlessness to both. And merely sets you spinning round to grasp uncertainly at any straw that seems to hold some promise of relief. And that's exactly what happens. You get, in a bind, and oh my God, I need money, or oh my God, I need this, or I need that, I need medication, I need, relationship, I need all of these different things. And yet when you actually obtain them, when you're able to lay your hands on them, they kind of dissolve in front of you, because you realize, oh, I thought I needed this, but in reality I didn't. So we do have to be honest with ourselves to the degree that we look at the world and realize that you cannot fix this world. You cannot come into this world and fix it by making changes in this world. You have to be willing to accept the changes in your own consciousness. And you have to be willing to accept the idea that the only change that is going to occur in this world comes through the act of forgiveness. When you actually withdraw your judgment and your hatred and your vilification, that's when change starts to occur, because what is not being resisted will dissolve and fade away.
Yeah. And this is just our ongoing practice, right? We do it. Maybe we make the choice for love and the choice for peace, and we actually notice, oh yeah, I feel a little better when I do that. And then 2 minutes later, 2 hours later, 2 days later, oh, you're back in the ego. you made another choice to judge someone. Okay, well, all right, it's just time to make a better choice again and again and again. You know, at the very beginning, Jesus says miracles are habits. What is he saying? He's saying we have to practice this. We have to practice this again and again and again. Every now and then talk to someone who's been into the course for a bit, and there's like, yeah, but this is boring. Well, it may be boring because you just keep doing it over and over and over. But there's also the benefit of doing it over and over and over, which is greater peace, which is greater happiness, greater joy. These are the outcomes of this work. So it's not just you know, idle, busy work. It's actually sort of the opposite of that. It's undoing the need for that busyness, so that we can find that still point within. So I even like the next part of that paragraph. I thought was really good too. He says, "Yet who can build his home upon a straw and count on it as shelter from the wind? The body can be made a home like this because it lacks foundation in the truth. And yet, because it does, it can be seen as not your home, but merely as an aid to help you reach the home where God abides." So again, another clear statement: the body is not what we are. The body is but a vehicle that we can use in our awakening. And when we remember that that's what it is and use it for that purpose, it really does help us. It helps us to kind of treat it with the right attitude. I like to give the analogy of, you know, we take care of the body much like you maintain your car, right? I mean, we have to put oil in the car, we have to put gas in the car, you know, maybe take it through the car wash every so often. Well, we got to do all these sorts of things with the body too. We need to do whatever the body needs, but we don't need to we don't need to believe that the body is what we are, right? I mean, we drive our car maybe almost every day, but we don't think that we are the car. You know, and that's what we want to start to do with the body. We want to start to drive our body around, you know, in our lives, whatever that looks like, whatever we do in our lives, do whatever normal people do. But we want to start realizing we are not our body. We are not the body. The truth of what we are is immortal spirit. The truth of what we are is endless love. The truth of what we are is boundless joy. And as you come into that even a bit more, the body starts to feel a little lighter. The body starts to feel a bit like a dream. The body starts to feel like something that we are releasing and stepping away from. So we just keep practicing this. And this shift of identity from body to spirit, from limit to limitlessness, is the process that we're in, and that's our work as we keep doing this.
It absolutely is. It's a process of erosion. You know, I was doing a little research the other day on the rock in the desert where Moses, you know, he had like 2.5 million people that he was leading, and they were down in that region where supposedly the burning bush appeared, and he received the 10 Commandments. But before he went up to the top of the mountain, he landed there with all these people, and they're pretty upset because they don't have anything to drink. And so he takes his rod and he smites this rock, and he splits it open, and the water gushed forth. And today there is, in fact, a rock that is huge. It looks like it's about 10 stories tall, and it's cracked right down the center and set apart. And there is signs of erosion where it was obvious that a huge amount of water had poured forth from that area. But nonetheless, that process of erosion that goes on as we start to recognize that the spirit, the water of spirit, the immersion into spirit is going to ultimately dissolve this sense of ego that we have. And that's the beauty of, you know, we're on a journey. We're like this $2.5 million group of, or I mean, 2.5 million population bumbling around into the desert. You know, it took them 40 years to finally settle in Israel. And the distance between Egypt and Israel, you can drive it in 3 hours. So that shows you how, you know, how confused we are as individuals, separate from truth. But once we are exposed to that gushing forth that comes from within us, that is the journey that we are set upon, where we are carried to the promised land as a part of, you know, this cleansing thing. And that really is an idea that comes up for me a lot right now, is that as we are advancing and moving forward with our studies, there is a purification process going on. And, you know, running water is a great way to purify something. So the whole analogy kind of comes together and gives us this vision of the water of spirit pouring forth from within us and literally eroding those parts of us that are not relevant to our true identity. And so it doesn't really seem that boring when you can shift your thinking in that direction, because you realize that the water is flowing and you're being polished like a diamond.
That's so sweet. But I really do like that analogy of purification, that is the process that we're in. And a little bit like the process of Michelangelo's statue of the David, where, you know, he had this whole big block of marble, and he saw in his mind's eye the statue that he wanted to create. And in a sense, it's like the stone itself spoke to him, and it told him what statue was in there. And he just carved away what wasn't true, what wasn't a part of the statue. And that's how he came to this magnificent creation. And in a way, all of our false bits that have been sticking on us are the things that get healed when we do the forgiveness. They're the parts that undo, melt away, release. And eventually all that's left is our truth. What's always been there, but maybe has been covered over, is now seen in its full beauty, in its full glory. And yeah, it's a process worth doing at the very least.
Yeah, it's actually interesting how Michelangelo used to select his stones from the quarry, because he would go out at dawn and they would have these big chunks of marble cut and set up, you know, so that they were out of the quarry and up on the ledge. And he imagined himself able, or for that matter, probably did, see the fresh cut stone in the morning sunlight, and it would become literally translucent, and he would see the form within the stone. And I also thought that was, you know, kind of a cool story about how he would select pieces of marble, because he would not just grab anything that was available. He would have to see it in that morning light to be able to perceive what was inside of it. And, you know, again, that's the journey that we're on, because we are so blinded to truth and so committed to using sensory input. And the senses are liars. They, you know, that's a projection of the mind. So you're not able to trust what you see. And you should never believe what you hear or taste or touch or smell. Or, you know, we have to go beyond that. We have to see through that light of the rising sun within us. And then we can see the truth in that block of stone.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I love this idea of letting sort of the morning sun of the Christ shine on our inner blocks and reveal what's true in them and what is false, so that what is false can be chipped away or undone. So yeah, that's a very cool story. I hadn't heard that one before.
Yeah, he was quite a master craftsman, as well as a an artiste and on every level. But, well, we're kind of ambling along here with some heavy ideas that are going to lead us up in future discussions to acknowledging the time of the birth of Jesus. And that is one of the two holidays that gets a little bit of attention in the Course in Miracles. That and Easter, the resurrection. So I don't know about you, but I'm feeling that urge to go out and grab a few toys for kids and wrap them up and set them under a tree somewhere and watch the innocence of the child in that state of wonder at this magical time of year.
Yeah, yeah, it is. There's a lot of beauty. So I think that's a good reminder for all of us as we go out into this often busy holiday season to keep an eye out for the beauty. That if as we're going through our lives, we consciously look to see what is beautiful, there's going to be a much higher chance of you seeing that beauty and experiencing it, because it actually is always there for us. So if we're not seeing it, it's actually because we have chosen not to. And I think if we adopt that mental frame of looking at the world around us, it will transform all of our lives. So yeah, this has been a really good connection with you today. I really like this talk today, Chris.
Yeah, it was a beautiful opportunity to share. And by sharing, we once again reaffirm our oneness. The fact that there is really only one of us here, and that is God expressing itself as God's perfect expression, God's perfect child. So what's coming up in the next few weeks there?
Well, Charlie and I are doing our next Good News this Saturday. It's either live in person in Glenview where we do the talk, or it will be available online live streaming as well. So yeah, other than that, a lot of holiday stuff. I guess this Sunday, actually, for those who are in Chicago, I'm doing a workshop called Karma Kundalini. This is at a Kundalini Yoga studio called Kundalini Yoga in the Loop. And so it's a joint yoga class, but also a past life clearing class that I'll be leading part of it. So come check that out on Sunday, December 2nd. And if you have any questions about that or want to find out more about what I do, because I also do spiritual counseling and healing work, feel free to check out my website, which is just my name. It's barrethedeen.com. That's BARRETHEDEEN.com. And yeah, how about you? Anything else new or popping in the weeks ahead?
No, just doing a lot of my own personal inner work right now and trying to optimize my transition to a higher vibrational level. And
sounds like enough.
Yeah, that generally is going to fill your day. But, so just out of curiosity, is Boy George going to show up and do a little karma chameleon with you?
Oh, that'd be fun. Be fun. Maybe I should send him a tweet. I don't know if he's on Twitter. Probably.
That would be good. Yeah, I think he's down in Australia now.
Oh well, might be a long trip then.
It would be one of those journeys without end, but also a journey without distance. You know, the spirit could be there with you.
Well, there you go. I mean, in a way, his spirit is always there, not just for me, but for all of us. So
yes,
that's maybe a good closing note to end on, is that the spirit of Boy George is with all of us always.
And his outlandish hats are still happening. So anyway, I will chat with you in 1 week, and hopefully Charlie will be joining us for that next episode. But have a fabulous week.
Yeah, you too, man. You too, man. All right, talk to you then.
Okay, bye.